Hello and welcome. Today we're going to try out this Fabriano Hot Press Studio watercolor paper. It's 25% cotton. Today I'm going to show you an innovative way to come up with a composition when you're doing a themed painting. And today we're going to do hearts because it's close to Valentine's Day. This will work regardless of what kind of composition you're trying to plan out, even if it's a landscape or an abstract or any other kind of composition. I started out with 2 pieces of 8.5 by 11 construction paper, and I'm doing the grade school trick where you fold the paper in half and then you basically cut out an ice cream cone. I'm doing it at all different kinds of sizes, making use of all the paper. And in some of the bigger hearts, I've actually cut out a smaller heart on the inside of it. And this gives me kind of a thick heart outline cutout. Once the hearts were cut out, I taped down my paper to a board and I arranged the hearts on the paper to find a composition. It's really an easy and engaging way to come up with a composition. What I like about it is I can see everything ahead of time without actually putting any marks on the paper. After that, it's just a matter of tracing the shapes onto the paper with a pencil. And I like to start on the right hand because I'm right-handed. And as I trace the shapes, I can remove them and they don't get in the way. Where the shapes overlap, I hold them down and carefully trace around the top one. When I've traced around the top one, avoiding the shape that's underneath it, I just pick it up and then I trace the shape that's underneath it. It's also good to trace a little bit of the shape underneath so that when you remove the shape that you're tracing on top, if the shape below it moves, you know where it was. I'm not very ambidextrous, but I was able to manage to trace a little bit of the shape with my left hand. It's so satisfying when you get done and the whole thing has been traced. Now it's time to trace it with ink, and I'm using a Staedtler pigment marker, but you can use any fine liner that you want, as long as it's waterproof. I had just put moisturizer on, and I did not want that on the paper, because if you get it on the paper, your watercolor, whatever medium, it's going to have a hard time sticking. So I'm wearing some fingerless gloves, and if you don't have any, you can take some gloves that you don't really like that well and just cut the fingers off. I got these on Amazon a long time ago. You could also use an artist glove, the ones that have just the pinky and the ring finger, or you can just lay down another piece of paper and put your hand on that to protect the paper that your artwork is on. I always try to get a smooth, accurate line, and one of the ways that I do it, I think different people have different ways of doing it, but I don't try to draw the entire line. I place my wrist where it's comfortable, and I only draw the segment of the line that does not feel awkward, and I draw it in the direction that does not feel awkward. I find for me that it's just works so much better if I allow my hand to move in its natural direction. I also take frequent breaks. I turn my paper if I need to, and I stretch my hands. Other artists do it different ways, artists that I really respect. So I think you just have to do it the way that it feels the best to you and the best way that you get the best results. I really enjoy the entire process of making art, but I also really enjoy when every phase is done. I always find it really satisfying to complete each stage, and especially when the line drawing is done in ink. A very quick part of this project, but sometimes a very important part, is to erase all the pencil that you use to trace. And I like to either use a gum eraser because it doesn't damage the paper, or a kneaded eraser. In this case, I'm going to use a kneaded eraser because I'm tired of all the little, goobers that come off of my gum eraser. Okay, time to paint. And this is basically a line and wash using a wet on dry technique. This is hot press paper, and it doesn't work very well with wet on wet techniques. So you can do a line and wash on cold press paper and do wet and wet, but it's not very good for hot press paper. I've mixed up a watery solution of dioxazine violet and water.
Hopefully,
and
do some
the
other
first
kind of art,
layer
or just watch
is going to
and
be
have
fairly
a cup of
thin.
something.
That helps make an even wash. I'll later on, when these dry, I'll go ahead and add a little bit more pigment, and I'll put a second and maybe a third coat on these purple hearts. On about half of the hearts I'm going to do purple, and on the other half I'm going to use quinacridone rose to make pink hearts. And I'm going to use the same technique, a watery solution of quinacridone rose and water for the first layer, and then when these dry I'll add more pigment and 1 or 2 more layers. This is so relaxing. I'm just going to put on a little bit of music and let you watch and see how the process works. want to talk a little bit about this paper. This is the smoothest hot press paper I think I've ever felt. It feels a little bit like cardstock. Now this is Fabriano Studio paper and it's 25% cotton. The Artistico, which is 100% cotton, has a lot more texture than this. So I think this would be really good if you did botanical studies and things like that, where you want ultra super smooth paper. I mean, this paper is almost slick, and I don't know if you noticed, but even though I was careful not to get any oils from my skin on this paper, there are still spots where the pigment did not want to adhere. It's possible that in the store somebody else may have handled this paper and gotten their oils from their skin on the paper. If you suspect that has happened, you can stretch this watercolor paper. I have stretched it, and there's something about the stretching process where you saturate it with water and then you staple it down and let it dry. It seems to wash some of the oils off, because I used this for a mandala and I had stretched the watercolor paper and it was fine. I did not have this problem. This time I just taped the paper down to a board, but normally I really like to stretch my watercolor paper. It just solves, for me, all kinds of problems. I will have to compliment this paper on one thing though. Because I just taped it down and didn't stretch it, I'm amazed that it didn't buckle more than it did. It didn't really lose its shape or twist very much once I pulled it up from the board. I think I'm just going to have to get used to how really smooth it is. It's just something that I'm not used to. But otherwise, I think this is really good paper. I mean, I'm actually very impressed. And the fact that I can stretch it and alleviate some of the problems with maybe somebody having touched this paper, I don't know. I think I'm going to enjoy it. It came with 50 sheets. I just have to get used to it. You can tell that your paper is dry enough to add the second layer by touching it. If it feels cool, it's not quite ready. Now, I fudged a little bit. You may have seen that I went over a couple places and touched up as I was going. As long as you don't put more water on there than is already there, you can do that a little bit. The problem is, especially in the wintertime when the air is really dry, it can be a little bit difficult to fudge things a little bit that way. But the longer you do it, the more you can tell if you can get away with it or not. Okay, you guys, this is sort of uncharted territory. I have used colored pencils for things like drawing things for my biology class, and coloring them in. And I really absolutely love my Crayola twistable colored pencils. So this is new for me, and I'm sorry I don't know that much about it, but I have a friend who does a lot of colored pencil, or used to do a lot of colored pencil, and I've just been really interested in how she used it to create lots of different layers with complex color combinations. And so I'm trying it out here, and you can look at what I've done and you can decide maybe you know a lot more about colored pencils than I do, and that's okay. I'm just experimenting here, and so I'm using the cooler colors where the sun is not going to shine, where I want the shadows to be cooler, and then where I want to add dimension but the sun or light is kind of on the shape, which I'm making into a little bit more of a form by trying to add some dimension. So I'm going to use more warm colors there, and I'm feeling my way out here. So you may see some places where I don't exactly do that. Like right here, I'm adding purple to the pink, which is obviously cooler. But anyway, as I go on, I feel so silly about this, but you guys, this is experimentation, and it's okay to not know what you're doing and try and figure it out. Okay, so this part of the quote-unquote tutorial, I'm not an expert in, but I don't know, I think you could still either say, oh, I would do it differently, or, oh yeah, she got that right. Anyway, I'm going to put some music on because I can't tell you what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. Do you know what I mean? So, just enjoy it for whatever it's worth to you, and I'll put on some music. use my acrylic ruler upside down, and I'll tell you why. Have you ever wanted to draw lines with your acrylic ruler and the ink goes underneath and it smears and it's all gross? Well, if you turn it upside down, that ledge gives you what you need in order to be able to use your fine liner to make your lines against this ruler. I'm going to use different size fine liners, so some of them are going to be fine and some of them are going to be a little thicker. And the idea is to make some stripes so that there's a background. I mean, you could do it, but I really didn't just want the hearts to be on top of the white plain paper. If you're wondering what's going on with my hands and what those marks are, I promise you it's not ringworm. It's this condition that I have. It comes and goes, and I'm being treated for it. It's not a big deal. It's not contagious. I'm sorry it looks kind of weird and kind of gross, but I can't do anything about it. I'm just doing everything I can, but I'll tell you what, stress really brings it out. And life has been a little bit stressful for those of us in America. I don't want to delve into politics on this channel because that's not what this channel is about. But I do want to say that if you're in Canada or Mexico, I'm so sorry. I really am. And I wish we would be a little bit nicer to our neighbors and our allies. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Now that I have all the background lines drawn, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line around the perimeter of the artwork to give it some definition. Then I'm going to retape it down to the board and start the watercolor of the background. Just like with the hearts, we're going to start with a solution of water, and in this case I'm using a neutral tint for the background. It has phthalo blue and quinacridone rose in it. Again, we're starting out with a watery solution of pigment to water, and we'll go back as this dries and add more layers with more pigment. I like to take advantage of something like stripes, because when you're trying to do a wet on dry technique and you want to get even washes, it makes it really easy because you don't have as much area to fill. When you have a big expansive area to fill in this way, it's just harder to keep the wash even. So anytime you can take advantage of a natural design attribute like stripes, do that for this technique. It makes it that much easier. You may notice that you can barely see the paint going down, and that's okay. For your first layer, you really want it to be watery. As you go along, you can add more pigment and you'll see more dramatic results as you add layers. But if you try to put too much pigment in the water when you're putting down your first layers, it's just going to be much harder to make it even. Don't worry, you're going to get the dark values that you're looking for. You just have to add them gradually. Whenever you're doing a more, I would like to say more of an illustrative type of style where you're doing wet on dry, you just can't get in a hurry. If you're trying to figure out what you can do while you're waiting for your layers to dry, I don't know about you, but my studio is at home. So I can go throw in a load of laundry, I can empty the dishwasher. There are things that you can do to maximize your time while you're waiting for layers to dry. You can also work on other projects. I do that a lot too. Now that the background's done, I can peel off the tape and do a final reveal. I hope you found this as relaxing as I did, and I hope it gave you a break in your week and in your busy life. I hope that you're taking very good care of yourself, and I hope you're not too stressed out and that things are going well for you. Feel free to give me a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Smooches. Bye.